AM 1220, KHTS, hometownstation.com. I am T here with you from noon to 1 on Thursdays with Dr. Proctor, an opportunity to peek over the shoulders of medical professionals to see what it is they are up to, what is out there to help us get the optimum health at any cost, and take care of ourselves, to be, really our own advocates in so many ways. And one of the ways I believe that we can really achieve this, just the best of the best, I believe we're born with the opportunity to have really Maserati quality vehicles, and for a number of reasons, depending on what kind of fuel we're putting in that engine, what kind of maintenance we're giving it, we end up with maybe a totally different vehicle by the time we reach our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. One of the things we can do right now, today, starting today, to achieve even better health is what we put in that engine. I'm talking today with Jessica Schulman, who's here. She has a couple of books: Relational Nutrition, The Psychology of Attachment and Eating Behavior, Nutrition in Sickness and in Health. These books are available on Amazon. You can get them either in print or as Kindle or an audio book. Again, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and I'm going to have her publisher in one day. I'm super excited to know Skyrocket Press is local publisher here in our area. Dr. Schulman here, I have to tell you, I have to give you all of her list. She's an author, a credentialed registered dietitian, nutritionist, lactation educator, holds a doctorate in health behavior and a master's degree in clinical psychology. So she understands why we eat, what we eat, and I am very grateful for your knowledge and your experience and expertise, Dr. Schulman. So thank you for being here again. We've talked a little bit about, who's at risk for poor eating habits. Oh, everybody. 2/3 of the U.S. population considered obese. There are so many medical issues that can be prevented simply by getting our diet and our nutrition and our overall thinking about food, trying to drop those obesity numbers, because obesity puts you at risk for so many health conditions: type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, gallbladder, cancer, osteoarthritis, there's depression. There's so many things that obesity leads to, and there are a lot of things. You talked before the break, Dr. Schulman, about the idea that insulin resistance is a huge problem. And yes, we can go to our doctor, we can go to a dietitian. There are tests we can take to find out where we are nutritionally, where we might be lacking, what we might be overdoing, because a lot of times, there's some overdoing involved, partly because of the American diet being high in sugar, high in fats, etc. And you talked a bit about how the Mediterranean diet is really optimum for us. In a nutshell, again, if you could walk me through what a typical Mediterranean meal might look like, or day.
Sure. So I was suggesting, based on the research that's out there, overall, if I was going to pick a diet that would apply to most people, I would choose the Mediterranean diet. And what it looks like is diet it's higher in the fats that are the essential fatty acids that are not saturated fat. So we're looking at monounsaturates mostly: olive oil, flaxseed, fish. So foods that are lower on the meats that are lower on the food chain: fish and poultry. So what would a diet look like, or one meal?
And when we say diet, we don't mean like, this is restrictive and this is the thing you're going to do for a short time. We're talking about your overall meal plan for the rest of your days.
Correct.
Sometimes diet is a 4-letter word, and people's eyes glaze over the minute you'll say it. No, this is not for a short time. This is a lifestyle.
This is forever.
So give me a meal. Just kind of bounce a meal. That may be one I could take, if you would, because we're a busy society, and especially here in Southern California, really most of America now, we're in cars a lot. So maybe something we could take on the go. What would be a good meal?
So maybe for lunch or dinner. I tend to think of it in terms of, when I was growing up, and it's basically the same, the basic food groups. So I'm looking at protein.
So that hasn't changed.
Not so much. We have My Plate now. We used to have the food pyramid. But the most important thing is portion sizes, serving sizes, and then those foods coming from the right kinds of fats.
And portion size, your stomach's about as big as your fist, right? Is that
That's
appropriate? So really, we're trying to fill up that space. That's not a lot of food.
So moderation. And it's okay to go off the Mediterranean diet temporarily. We have Halloween coming and Thanksgiving.
It happens.
Christmas. But
a
to
mindset.
Focus on making the right choices, the mindset. So a meal, if we were going to choose a Mediterranean style, it could be any kind of whole grain, beans as the protein, maybe some chicken. If you're going through even a fast food, you can make a good choice. Broiled chicken, fresh fruits and vegetables. Trying to stay away from the saturated fats, the fried foods. It's a common sense diet. And what I really like is it gives options.
If you can still recognize it, chances are it's okay to eat.
Correct.
Because when it's doctored up or fried or in a new coat of, breading or whatever, probably not a good choice.
Right. It's the processed foods that
those are the ones
is
that get us in
contributing
trouble.
To that 2/3 obesity and overweight.
Wow.
And the lack of exercise and the lack of other things that we'll talk about.
And exercise, just moving, getting up, going for a walk, parking a little further away. I mean, these are the tiny little changes you can start to make to get to where you're active. I had a doctor say that one of the exercise you should do is the one you like. Because if you don't like it, you're not going to do it.
And that's true with diets too. Which diet should I go on? The one that you stay on, the one that works for life. But it's not enough just for us to focus on food and exercise. And it used to be, and when I was trained, it was years ago as a dietitian, it was the energy in, if that equals the energy out, the output, the exercise, you're going to be in balance, you're not going to gain weight.
Now,
that's part of the picture, but there's a lot more to it. We were talking about hormones and insulin, emotional issues. There's so much more. And if we don't look at those three areas, which is the nutrition and exercise as one area, the mindfulness and psychology is another area.
This is
and
where
health behavior.
This is where, right, because then you can make the right choices. You can do everything you need to do in your kitchen, and then there's more to it. Now, the National Alliance for Nutrition and Activity states that diet significantly contributes to 4 out of the 6 top leading causes of death in the United States. 4 out of 6. Now, if you have 6 candy bars and only 2 of them are the ones you like, you've got 4 in the pile that are bad. So the idea that diet can contribute to 4 out of 6 of the leading, that means if we can deal with our own vehicles and take care of our diet and our lifestyle, we can significantly reduce our possibility of dying from 4 out of the 6 in the United States. Now, moderation and balance certainly in our diet and intake and output, but that mindful eating. Now, developing healthy relationships to food and eating starts at birth. And in your book, there's some talk about the attachments and the things we make. And caregiver and carers are the people that care for us. That interaction can very seriously affect our views toward food. I'd love for you to address a little bit of that in what you wrote about in relational nutrition.
Sure. So at birth, we all have a drive to eat. And that's good, because without that drive, we wouldn't survive.
We can't do much else. Cry and eat.
Cry, eat, and cling. That's what we do, those 3 things. So we are wired to eat. We have to eat. And we live in an environment, a social environment, physical environment, that provides us abundance of the wrong foods. So we have this incredible drive, and unlike other kinds of drives, whether it's, alcohol or sex, or we can't just say no, abstinence. It doesn't work with food.
Not with food. So any other addiction you can turn away from, but food is always a part of what gets you to the next day.
So how do we take that drive? What do we do to use that drive in a way that is health promoting, that will prevent those 4 out of 6 diseases? And again, we live in this very I would say, almost toxic environment. You walk into the market and there's processed foods everywhere. Wherever you go, you have to, and children have a lot of trouble with this, making good decisions, given that the environment, it looks so friendly. There's nothing wrong with,
it's friendly and it's easy.
I don't even want to say what's
No,
serious.
no, we won't. But it's friendly and easy.
Right. It's very difficult to just get through the day and make good choices. Yeah. And in addition to, there's so many other factors as well. We're all doing. We're super busy and
sitting most of the time, by the way.
Sitting.
A whole lot of sitting.
And self-care. Where's our self-care? We have to be able to stop and make good decisions and be mindful, and that's hard. So back to what happened during childhood and how does that affect the choices we make today? And what I would say is one approach and a model that I use in the book is that at birth, we have an attachment to a primary caregiver. Traditionally, it's the mother, could be either, but we have this attachment. And if that attachment is broken for whatever reason, and sometimes it's trauma and sometimes just parents have to work and the infant has to go to childcare. And some children do well with that, others don't. What humans are wired to do is to bond. And we bond with other humans. And when that doesn't happen, we bond with objects. And a baby may need to bond with a bottle, and that's very adaptive because mom and dad are not around. And mom's not there to nurse the baby every 2 to 3 hours, which is really what it takes at birth. And so baby becomes bonded to objects. And that can be adaptive. As you can imagine, sometimes it can go haywire. And over the course of, as people age, it affects their relationships. They're now bonded to food. They use food to cope. They use food to handle stress. This seems really obvious, right? I mean, we talk about comfort foods, but it is grounded in science, and that really does happen. And it's called there's an object relations model in psychology, we call it. So if we have a broken or ruptured attachment, and then we have a relationship with food that's not healthy, that's going to affect you the whole course of your life. And, and you're one of the lucky ones if you tried to cope with food, because the unlucky ones cope with other things like maybe alcohol or drugs or
more destructive forces.
That's right.
Well, now we talked earlier about even with the insulin tolerance and the idea that leptin is the good guy and the insulin is the bad guy. Now we have this psychological sort of, quote, bad guy. Not that anybody was bad, but it was something that snapped. Now where we're going to work to try to lower the issues we have with insulin so that we can read those signals of I'm full and when we start eating appropriately and healthy and dropping, is there something we can do for the mental aspect of the detachment that happened?
I think there is. I don't have a magic bullet, but I think part of it is that our healthcare professionals, our therapists, MFTs, our social workers need to be cognizant of attachment and how it impacts food behavior. And at the same time, we need to stop and slow down, and I know it's almost impossible for a lot of us, and think about and be mindful and think about what we're eating, what we're doing to ourselves, and how we can literally reparent ourselves.
So it's sort of the old adage of knowing is half the battle. If you are aware of it, I'm using this as now it's time for me to step in and be my own, again, my best advocate or my parent, as you say. Now you can go to a nutritionist or a dietitian. Again, we're talking with Jessica Schulman, who is an author, credentialed registered dietitian, nutritionist, lactation educator who holds a doctorate in health behavior and a master's degree in clinical psychology. We could go to someone like you. Her website, by the way, is mynutritionspecialist.com. But just the idea that we might look at, you know what? I'm about to take, I mentioned earlier, the girl in the film, she broke up with a boy, spoon in vat of ice cream, sits, eats whole. Okay, that's object, there's your transference. There's your, I'm going to do this and because I can't have that. If we're doing that every day, where we're about to grab something because we have anxiety or we are feeling lonely or we are feeling whatever is really missing, we should deal with that, not just grab the food, the ice cream, the cookie, but going to a dietitian or nutritionist might be something that could help us. But just knowing that that's part of the equation.
Yes, it's knowing that to be aware of that. And that's a very individualized approach. And I do both. I take an individual approach, and I also do public health. Broadly, what can we do on a more cultural, global level, changing our access to the kinds of foods or restaurants? But that individual approach is very important because there was even a study recently that I just came across. It was fantastic. It addressed mindfulness and self-care. And it was a study of, I think it was Brown University. It was just published in a journal, peer-reviewed. And what they found was that when people were more mindful, paying attention to what they ate and thought about it, took a moment, take a breath, they had less subcutaneous fat. They had less fat that people could see. So you have the subcutaneous fat that people can see on your belly, and then you have your internal fat that's really dangerous if it's too much. The fat that people could see on you actually went down just by being mindful. We're not talking about meditation. That's different.
Just being aware.
Stopping, slowing down, self-care, being aware. It's a very individual approach. How do you do that? A lot of support. A lot of support.
Right. And again, talking about caregivers or carers, when you have people in your life that you are interacting with, that is also, again, a big part of our views toward food. Knowing is half the battle, and admitting. Sometimes I feel like we really need to be accountable perhaps to another individual, maybe a best friend, maybe a parent, maybe a child, and say, I realize I think I'm making some bad choices, and I'd like to make better choices, and I would like you to be my partner in this, and not that I want you to take responsibility for me, but maybe if you see me making a choice, or maybe we could do this together. I think that is sometimes is a little more helpful, because babies don't parent themselves. Babies need someone. And maybe even as adults, if we can admit that, hey, I need a little help with this. I can't parent me all by myself, because you're sort of infant-like if you've had that sort of detachment that we spoke of when you were young that created some of your issues with food. I love, Dr. Schulman, that, again, your books, I love the idea, relational nutrition, the idea that we really need to re-examine our relationship to food, why we eat, what we eat, when we eat. I mean, there's so much that goes to that. And your second book, Nutrition in Sickness and Health, I'm very much looking forward to looking through this book. This is practical nutrition tips for patients, caregivers, and the public. Can you very briefly, in an elevator pitch, give me less than a minute, tell me a bit about this book?
I had, over the course of 2 or 3 years, I had clients, and the public would ask me a question, and I would answer it, and I would spend way too long answering the question, and so it turned into an article, and then eventually turned into a book. But each chapter is completely different. It's, one's probiotics, one's what to eat when I'm sick, another one is vitamin D, weight management, food safety, and so you can, this is a book where if you have kids and you're very distracted and you can't get through a whole novel, you can read a 15-page chapter. If you have ADD, whatever it is, you'll make it through my book.
You're looking at me when you say that. I know that's true. I love that one of your quotes here is, how can you tell the difference between quality nutrition science and pseudoscience? How does nutrition affect my immune system? You hear tons in the news and advertising about probiotics. What is it? Should I be concerned if my child's not eating well? What are the dietary needs of older adults? What's older? Just curious.
I have to shift that number a little bit higher. Older adult would be probably more than 65.
Okay. Well, there comes a point where your nutrition needs change, where the body changes. So I know that I'm peeking over the bed sheets at being an older adult at some point. So I just wanted to make sure that I was going to be reading for myself too, in addition to my loved ones. Again, it's questions, both of her books, clear, concise, fun to read, and I encourage you to learn more. Again, Jessica Schulman, you can get her books on Amazon and at barnesandnoble.com. They're available in print. They're available in audiobook. They're available a Kindle. And her website is mynutritionspecialist.com. Dr. Schulman, you also, you teach nearby?
I do.
Tell me quick what you do.
I teach Introduction to Nutrition at College of the Canyons, and I've taught a number of public health and patient education courses. And I really enjoy that nutrition class.
I love that. Your goal is to give back constantly, always giving back, and that's one reason why you can be my friend. You're here with Dr. Proctor, noon to 1 every Thursday. We have to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. HometownStation.com, AM 1220, KHTS. AM 1220, KHTS, HometownStation.com. I am T with you every Thursday from noon to 1 with Dr. Proctor, an opportunity for us to peek over the shoulders of medical professionals, doctors, various levels of medicine and health and well-being to find out what it is they are talking about, what is out there for us, and an opportunity really for us to start conversations about how to be our own best advocates for our health. With a silver tsunami coming, what they're talking about, aging population, ourselves, our parents, aunts, uncles, who we might have to be caregivers for ourselves, the idea that various things that have happened in healthcare, there's tremendous impact right now on hospitals and doctors, many more people who have the opportunity to go and see a doctor. So it's in our best interest to be our own, in care of our own health. Again, our best advocates. Today, I had the opportunity, the great honor of speaking to Jessica Schulman, who is, again, very lettered. She's a very intelligent woman when it comes to our food, our nutrition, and our relationship to it. Not just what we should be putting in our body, but why we put it in our body. Author, credentialed registered dietitian, nutritionist, lactation educator, doctorate in health behavior, master's degree in clinical psychology. Again, very wise as far as her website's mynutritionspecialist.com. The idea that, again, more than 2/3 of the United States population is considered to be obese. And why is that a bad thing? Obesity puts us at risk for so many health conditions: type 2 diabetes, stroke, heart disease, gallbladder disease, cancer, high cholesterol, high triglycerides. I mean, the list goes on. And the National Alliance for Nutrition and Activity says that diet, just what we eat, not quote unquote diet, the 4-letter word diet, but that what we eat significantly contributes to 4 out of the 6 top leading causes of death in the United States. But you have to always be mindful of the idea. Dr. Schulman told us that really a Mediterranean diet is good for us. But she also said moderation. It's key. You can have the Halloween candy. You can have the Christmas cookies. You can have the, Hanukkah latkes. You can have these things, but for the most part, what you put into your body has to be thought out to keep you as healthy as possible. So it becomes a 3-pronged approach to being healthy nutrition-wise. It's the nutrition, what we're putting into our body. It's the psychology of what we're eating and the behavior, so that we start to recognize things like bad dietary habits, skipping meals, overly restrictive eating. I encourage you to learn more. I encourage you to check out some of her info at mynutritionspecialist.com. And again, be more mindful of what you are already putting into your body. I will see you next Thursday here on Dr. Proctor on Thursdays at noon here on your hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS.